Good evening and welcome to I'm Listening Live. I'm Listening is a 24/7, 365 initiative that works to destigmatize mental health. At the end of the show, we'll be putting up some resources for those that think they need a little extra care. Got a great show planned for you. We have singer-songwriter Aloe Blacc and Dr. Mauricio Heilbronn to talk about all things medicine and COVID. Oh, so much to talk about still, but before I get into any of that, let's talk about social media. There's a lot of people right now that are experiencing what I'm calling social media letdown. And basically that is truth coming out. A lot of us are encountering aspects of people we have different relationships with, friends, family members, employees, based on what they're posting or not posting on social media. So it's something that's definitely coming a lot into my office more, and even through friends, feeling bad, feeling let down or disappointed in the way that your friends, loved ones, and family members are handling the current politics of this moment. There's a reminder that comes with that about also our use of social media. I'm saying all the time over and over that we need more care and compassion. We want to be thoughtful about what we're curating and putting on our social media because it does matter and it does impact people. So whenever you're thinking about posting something, pause. Pause and ask yourself if that post is oppressive to anyone for any reason. Pause and ask yourself if there's anyone that is potentially harmed or left out in your social media post. These are the new ethics that we're needing to develop so that no one has to feel violence or oppression against them. We talked earlier about some of the dating apps starting to change some of the filter properties so that individuals are not having to encounter sexual racism and body shaming, all sorts of other factors, because again, mental health matters. And when we're going on our social media, we want to surround ourselves with messaging and media that supports who we are, reflects back the value we have, and also isn't going to create problems down the road. And we're seeing a lot of celebrities and a lot of company CEOs that are coming under fire for problematic things that they've said, which is important that we're holding people accountable. But moving forward, I want us to all be very, very thoughtful about the impact our social media is having, because with social media, everyone now has a platform and the impact of everything we say and do absolutely matters. All right, now let's go to our first guest, Aloe Blacc, singer, songwriter, and activist. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So I always like to start off by talking about mental health. How is your mental health doing right now through everything?
I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. There is a lot going on. I have 2 young kids. I'm trying to be daddy. I'm trying to be artist, musician, and I'm trying to be activist. But personally, I feel like I'm in a good space, and my wife and I still have very civil conversations. So I think I'm all right.
Yeah, you're smiling. A lot of parents I'm talking to right now aren't smiling, so you're doing something right.
Well, people say I smile too much sometimes, but I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. I heard you might be able to confirm that your brain doesn't know the difference. Even if you fake smile, you're getting the same endorphins, and eventually you can trick yourself into being happy.
That's right. Our brains are one big piece of mush that we can manipulate as needed. So well done. Let's talk about self-care. Are any new forms of self-care emerging through this time that's not familiar or something that's traditional for you?
A lot of breathing. So I had been put onto this Wim Hof technique of breathing, and he's doing his breathing and mainly for kind of health purposes and not necessarily mental health, physiological health. But I found that just taking a pause, breathing in deeply gives me a chance to kind of regulate how I'm processing physiologically, how I'm processing information that's coming in. And there's so much coming in from the web. And sometimes I got to just decide not to click on this button to see or read what's coming next.
I think that's so important though, right? Like checking in with our mood and our body and saying like, is this the time to open ourselves up to whatever might come through media at this moment? But also breathing. It's like one of the few ways we can actually regulate our nervous system. So that must be why you're smiling so much again.
Could be.
Let's talk about some of your music. I read a quote by you that I thought was really meaningful, and I'm trying to kind of spread this to everyone, regardless of whatever kind of genre or work they do in the world. But you were talking about being uncomfortable with the state of some music, how it was more centered in the expression of ego and nothing social justice oriented. Unpack that for us.
Yes. I mean, music in general, I think since the dawn of the record, right, and the build up to the burgeoning industry that it is, has been very self-centered. The artist, the recording artist, is one that is always focused on what they want to say, not necessarily representing what everyone else wants to say. And, I sort of took a stand. I grew up in hip hop, love it. It's a very self-interested form of music, for lyrics in terms of the lyrics. And but there was a moment in the early days of hip hop, and there still is an undercurrent of social activism. And I thought, if I'm going to be in this music business as for a career with a major megaphone, I want to use it for positive social transformation. So I want to create music that speaks with and for the underdog, with humanity, not just for myself and not just glorifying myself.
Yeah, I love that. You were talking in one of the interviews about all the different levels of oppression that we have to work through. And I was just sitting there thinking like, wow, that's a lot of pressure to put upon yourself as a musician. But again, I guess I circle back and say, I'm also thankful for people like yourself taking their platform seriously. Do you hold all musicians accountable to what they're putting out there, or is that just something you put upon yourself?
Yeah, I do. I think everybody is allowed to do whatever they want. That's just the freedoms we have. And in order for us to try to balance the scales, there needs to be some light in the darkness. I feel like, sure, go ahead, make a song about whatever you want. It could be about your depression. It could be about your lost love. It could be about wanting to fight somebody. You can be as dark and as angry as you want to be in your music. My job is to be a counterbalance and to be the light and to hold you accountable for what it is that you're delivering to the world, because ultimately, we are what we eat, and we consume in more ways than just our mouths. We are consuming the air that we breathe. We're consuming the sounds that we hear, the sights that we see, and through our skin, even we are consuming the light and the air. So it's all important, and my goal is to impress upon my peers that your responsibility is to leave the world a better place as a human being than when you got here. And you can do that with your music, with your voice, with your lyric.
Imagine if everyone took that kind of responsibility.
I think that everyone has to take that kind of responsibility. I think that, the sign of the times is showing us how much we are all so interconnected. I was quarantining at home. I went outside to early in the morning to check the garden, and it was a very cold, brisk morning. And as I was calling to my children, I wanted them to come out and see how the steam was rising from the ground, from the dew, as the sun was hitting it. And as I was calling them, I saw the aerosols, the humidity in my voice, in my mouth. And it dawned on me immediately that this is going to be a problem. I know everybody's saying wash hands, but I know that these aerosols are going to be a problem for people breathing and any mucous membranes that are not being covered. And then, sure enough, within 3 weeks, the entire concept about face masks and everything. And I say all of that because I realize this is how interconnected we are. Just being next to someone and breathing with them in the same room, becomes a potential threat to your life, and it's an existential threat. We are so connected.
That was so stunning that just what you exhale out of your mouth has that powerful of an impact on those around you that you could possibly infect them with something. But you had a quote I wrote down because it was kind of what you just said there. And I thought it was so stunning. And you were basically, I don't remember where I wrote it down, but you were basically commenting on that like we're all just one big interconnected organism, and the work is about finding responsibility in that. So let me ask you this question. Do you think what's happening right now in terms of the way we're managing COVID, but also the Black Lives Matter movement right now, do you think that the changes we're seeing in people are rooted out of fear of getting exposed as problematic? Or do you think it's that the consciousness has shifted and people actually care more in general?
Oh my goodness, consciousness has absolutely shifted.
Okay.
You don't get 100,000 people in the streets in Hollywood if consciousness hasn't shifted. You definitely have some outliers who are there just for the Instagram moment and they have no concept. But I fundamentally believe that human beings are you know are good, and that what we're seeing is a return to this goodness. It's not top down kind of hegemonic doctrine that is telling us what we need to think and how to feel. This is now coming from earth up, from our hearts and from our souls.
I hope so. And I believe what you just said. I do think that at our core, we are good, all good first. And it's, capitalism and consumerism and all these other factors that starts to kind of maybe throw us off center. But that's kind of what I'm hoping is happening too, as I look out the window and see people in the streets. Like I feel the power and I'm hoping that we can take this forward.
Yeah, we know that race is a construct. We know that humanity began in Africa, that at some point we were all part of the same tribe. We know that race is basically it's a genetic mutation, a function of how much sunlight you are receiving in whatever region of the world you are living in and how much melanin your body's producing. So, we can let all that go. And if you're still holding on to it, then see a doctor, see somebody about it, because it's probably a mental illness. And let's just move forward and be loving and compassionate.
Yeah, and I'm trying to help support that charge, because I think traditionally in my field, mental health, we quote unquote stayed outside of politics. And now we're finally realizing there's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
There's just no such thing.
A lot of my artist friends and peers are very much in that apolitical realm. And I think seeing this moment, the quarantine moment where other countries are getting back to work. Australia, my wife is from Australia, so we have family there. They're getting back outside. New Zealand has basically beat the pandemic until Americans come in. I think Iceland has done it as well. This is showing us that as an artist, or even just as a regular person, you can't be apolitical. If you had the right political system that took charge and had the right kind of leadership to begin with, and you were using your voice, and you wouldn't be in the predicament of not being able to go and do shows and earn your living. So, that could be a stretch. I could be definitely exaggerating, but I think the point is made.
Yeah. And to go to what I was opening the show talking about, where, people are coming into my office clinically and they're dealing with this letdown of what they're seeing people post or not post, or how they're managing the Black Lives Matter movement. Have you had any moments where you were disappointed or let down by someone's response?
Yes. I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of different folks. I'm looking for all kinds of allies, because there's the transformation that needs to happen is something that will require every single person to do something. It's no longer enough to just feel a way and it's no longer enough to tweet or post an IG image. That's not the kind of action that it will take to transform America in the way that needs to transform. And in the conversations I've been having, I find that people of privilege, who I consider allies, are looking for an easy, quick win, an easy, quick answer. And there's no easy, quick answer. It's the dark, hard work that needs to happen of having those conversations with the people in your family that you've been avoiding in order to really make these transformations happen. Transformational conversations, not combative.
Yes.
Just open and listening.
Yeah, I like that. And also just let me highlight, if there's no discomfort, it's not necessarily the deepest level of transformation, right? So I like
no pain, no gain.
That's 100% right. Whether we're talking neurologically, psychologically. Let's talk about music for a second. So you did something really beautiful with the song I Do that I don't see happen often in popular music, which is, here in America, we often tend to do generally English only songs. So you then bring in some Spanish. Talk to me about the decision making behind that, because I think that's really stunning, like getting America more familiar with other languages and music.
Yeah, I travel the world. I did quite frequently. I feel like I'm a citizen of the world. My parents are from Panama. I'm the first generation born in America. Spanish was a language spoken in my home. And I thought that a song like this was something that could really translate well, especially because I think love ballads are romantic love ballads, not heartbreak songs, not love lost and love lorn, but romantic ballads of monogamous relationships do really well in Spanish language countries. Also, my wife is half Mexican, so there's just this beautiful relationship we have with the Spanish language, and I think it's important to share a song in as many languages as possible. But unfortunately, I don't speak any others.
I'm still loving that one. I mean, and what's so interesting is not even able to maybe translate every lyric. You can feel it. So it's like I know what the song's about even before I can hear some of the English lyrics.
Right, yeah. I mean, a lot of what is beautiful about music is the universal language. So we communicate so much with timbre, with inflection, with melody, with attitude, and I'm sure that's what you're able to pick up on. You know, I used to listen to a lot of Brazilian music, and I don't speak Portuguese. It's close enough to Spanish written, but in pronunciation, it's a complete different world.
Well, if you didn't have two kids, maybe you could have been learning other languages during this time.
Yeah, blame the kids.
Aloe Blacc, thank you so much for being a part of our show, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you. Thanks so much. Have a great night. All right, so I think that's a really great message. Aloe Blacc was sharing about taking responsibility for the impact what we're putting out into the world has on those around us, especially social media. And like we were saying, a lot of different celebrities getting in a lot of hot water for what they're posting. So just follow what I was saying at the beginning of the show. Take some pause, check in with yourself about the impact of what you're posting is going to have on those around you. Because again, these things last forever. And who doesn't want to be a part of making things change for the positive? All right, now we're going to switch gears and go to Dr. Mo Heilbronn, trauma surgeon and chief of staff at St. Mary's Medical Center. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know, this whole COVID thing is an ongoing story. I feel like every time I turn around, something shifts and changes. And, you know, one of my barometers is I try to watch Dr. Fauci in the back. Like any facial expressions he makes, any long sighs, like I'm listening more to that. Yes?
Well, you're feeling exactly what's really going on is that things are changing every day.
Right.
We are living in a research study. And so feeling like you're learning new stuff every day, so are we. And Dr. Fauci and those guys should be our beacon. We should be following them. It's just hard.
And as an expert yourself, I mean, what do you do with the anxiety of not always having the best answer based on what we know? Because I know I encounter that where people expect me at all times to know everything, to be on top of everything. And it's like, I'm a human. And as you said, the novel virus, things are changing so quickly. How do you manage that?
In this era of social media, managing it is almost impossible. Every day people are asking and demanding information. And it's hard to explain to lay people or to give them enough time to listen, that we're just learning. And literally every day we're getting more information. We have to change what we know because what we know changes. It sounds dumb, but it's actually true.
One of the things that came up was with the Black Lives Matters protests, there was a new wave in corona positives and people were blaming the protests. And then we were unpacking that most likely due to when symptoms established themselves. It was from the early opening. Where are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we don't know a lot. We're learning about the biology of this virus. And now we're finding out that you don't have to have symptoms to spread it. I was on trauma call last night, and we are now seeing trauma patients that come in for other reasons that are testing positive for COVID. So it's out there. In terms of the second surge, we haven't gone back down. We have only been elevating at our hospitals, and I'm here in California. It's becoming a problem.
Yeah, like I'm thankful that we're putting a lot of attention into Black Lives Matter. But what I'm seeing a side effect of that being is that there are people I've spoken to where I mentioned COVID and they're kind of like, oh, yeah, that's right. And I'm thinking, oh, that's horrible that people have kind of let their guard down. So what is the work right now? Is it just about keeping it in the news and in the conversation and reminding our loved ones, like, put that mask on?
Yeah, but I mean, don't you sometimes feel like we may have a finite amount of an ability to handle stuff, and new things keep coming on, that it just makes it hard for us to deal. I mean, try to imagine I drive to work every day in a hospital that has a ton of COVID patients that some of them I have to take care of as a general trauma and a vascular surgeon. And I drive to work in my hometown in Long Beach, where I see these establishments near my hospital that are boarded up, that were looted and destroyed. So I get a realization of both of them every day, and so does everybody who works in that hospital.
So I'm one of those people where I'm erring on the side of caution, and I haven't re-entered my clinical practice because my clinical office doesn't have windows that open. What are your thoughts on people that are rushing back to work as soon as possible? Should we be taking more time? And if so, what are we looking for to know it's safe? Because I'm not trusting our current administration to tell us that.
Good. Yeah. This is going to be only slightly controversial, but the decision to go back to work is not a scientific one. It's an economic one. And I understand that because I've been impacted, as have all of us. But scientifically, honestly, we don't know a lot of stuff. We don't know the size of the droplet that these things exist on. We don't know how long they take to affect you. We have symptoms that range from loss of smell to blood clotting in your blood vessels to nothing. Do you know how scary that is for a doctor like me and my colleagues who are dealing with the virus we're learning about? The symptoms are all over the map. We don't have any drugs to treat it. We don't have any vaccine to fight it. And our tests are meh.
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard someone list it quite like that. I felt that in my gut. Panic.
Yeah. Well, it's not panic. It's we need to give smart people time to figure this crap out, and they will. We need to let them do their job, and in order to do that is to do what you're doing and what the rest of us are doing. Being reasonable, being calm, but being reasonable. Social distance, wear your mask. Don't be stupid, but also mentally, we do have to figure out a way to be social. And so we need to figure out a way to communicate safely and just be with other people safely. Safe distance, masks. A little bit of common sense is going to go a long way. And unfortunately, common sense nowadays is hard to come by.
It sure is. But, and that's kind of the advice I'm giving as well is I think we've reached a threshold where psychologically speaking, in terms of people's moods, they do need to feel like they're somehow a participant in the world and they're making contact with others. But like you pointed out, there's a lot of really safe ways to do that. I mean, what I've been saying is outside, not around people, not for long, no enclosed spaces, wearing masks 6 feet apart, which sounds like a long laundry list. But when I highlight, like you just did, what is still occurring, it starts to remind them of the importance of that.
That's perfectly said. Absolutely. Okay. We just, it's hard. And some people can't stay home. And that's a hard part for the people that I work with, the nurses and the housekeepers that I work with, that we have to go every day into a place where we know it's around us. Right. And the good news is we're not seeing a huge spike in the healthcare professionals, which means we're doing something right.
Beautiful. And then just circle back to what you said about individuals coming in, not for COVID, but indirectly getting a test and then finding out they're positive. What are we to make of that?
We should accept that as the norm. We know it's out there. Our assumption, which was faulty, and it should be, that everybody who has COVID has symptoms. And we know that's not true anymore. We know that only, 43% will even have a fever. So, and our tests aren't exactly perfect. So I think it's an understanding that this is part of our health life now, and we will learn to deal with it appropriately in the same way we have before. We can do this. We can totally do this.
So, and just to close, and I know this is like an impossible question to answer, and I asked you earlier, what do you think we should be looking for? I mean, with so many different experts giving so many pieces of advice, like what would you tell your loved ones as far as what they need to see happen before you feel comfortable with them really kind of re-entering the world? Is it about a vaccine?
Vaccine's going to take a while. We've never come up with a coronavirus vaccine yet. So this isn't going to happen right away. And our treatments, we need to move that along. But what I tell my loved ones and what I tell people that I care about is, and it sounds so dumb, but don't be stupid. Wear your mask. If you have to go to a restaurant, or if you have, there's some people that are so like, I need to be in a restaurant. I need to go to a bar. I need to do this, which I can understand from a social point of view, but from a scientific point of view, it gives me ulcers. So the best thing I can tell you is if you need to do that, be careful. Wear your mask. If you feel like you're crowded, you are, and you need to go somewhere else.
Oh, I like that. If you feel like you're crowded. I feel crowded around just as much as one other person, and so I'm thriving at all this distance. But I like that little gem for everyone else. Dr. Mo Heilbronn, thank you so much for being a part of our show. Be safe out there, and thank you for everything you're doing to help us.
Hey, thank you. You too.
Have a great night. I like simple answers, and I don't think that answer was too simple. We still have to take precautions. We still have to be thoughtful. We have to assess for ourselves the level of risk we're willing to take. But I like that the advice hasn't changed. It's still about safety in terms of distancing, wearing those masks. We're going to keep reporting, though, on all of the new updates as they unfold. We'll be back on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can check out all of our old shows by going to alltheradio.com handles, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And some numbers at the end of the show for those that need a little extra care and support. As always, thanks for hanging out with us, and you all have an awesome, awesome night.